Hello everyone, how's things? Okay, so I've got a conversation piece for you today. There may be a bit of playing in it, but we'll see how we go on. And I'm calling it the trouble with fusion, particularly like with sort of the jazz fusion, the jazz rock fusion idiom, um, that type of thing, because I think it's kind of got a bit pompous and over-bloated, from where it sort of originates, to what it's become. It's sort of like become this, like almost like a parody of itself. Um, so I mean, I think we're going to need to need to define some terms. Like what do we actually mean by that term fusion? When we look it up in the dictionary, and it can either mean like a noun, as in like it gives you example of somebody like Miles Davis, doing like Bitches Brew or something like that, where it's it's this sort of mashup of like jazz with world music and pop and rock and so on. But I think there's got to be a bit more to it than that. I mean, in terms of like say, like in terms of food, like you're talking about fusion cookery, and that's sort of that's more to do with like bringing together like all like different flavors of the world. I mean, I'm sure you've been to those sort of restaurant sort of cafe type places where you've got your tray and you can like pick different things from around the world. Like you can get your egg fried rice from there, you can get like an Indian meal from here, you can get some lasagna from there, get some quiche from there, you get fish and chips a bit further down, you get a nice burger a bit further up, and so on. I mean, so that's in terms of like it's like a buffet meal where you're taking bits of this, you're taking bits of that. Fusion cookery, I mean, one thing that springs to mind is the very popular English dish, the chicken tikka masala. I believe that was invented sometime in the 1970s in somewhere in Birmingham. Because like chicken tikka, that's a traditional Indian dish, but then somebody had the idea of adding masala wine to it, and then created this chicken tikka masala, which has now almost become a cliche. You could take it back even further than that and talk. I mean, like I remember one of my professors was talking about that. This he had the idea of because it was like the curry itself, like you're bringing in, let's say like Spanish paella. Is that how you pronounce it? Paella. I pronounce it paella. How do you know? How do you pronounce it? That thing with rice and fish and chicken and other other stuff. I mean, it's a kind of like a close relation to like a biryani or like when you go out for like an Indian meal and you have like whatever like you have your madras or with some rice and whatnot, and but you actually extrapolate back and then you realise that these sort of Indian dishes, they were sort of assembled like over a number over sort of like hundreds of years, that these recipes would have gradually come together from these different cultures, and then also there's things like things you learn at school about sort of Marco Polo, like bringing noodles back from China, and I think ice cream as well, and I'm not sure, correct me on that one. But you know what I mean. So this idea of just taking different ideas and then putting them together and creating something new. Nuclear fusion, of course, the idea of creating energy by sort of slamming together you know, subatomic particles and what have you, and so on. But then, sort of like musically, then this whole idea. I mean, where does it start? Like say like in classical music. I mean, I'll do some playing for you now, but like like the like the. I'm gonna give it a minute to warm this one up, but like that's the Gavotte on Rondo. I'm just gonna play a little bit of it. Yeah, that one. Yeah, but what was innovative about that one was the way it took like a German gavotte and mixed it together with the Italian rondo, and they came up with this gavotte on rondo, gavotte in the style of a rondo. So that's like that's one sort of innovation. Also, in classical music and more modern stuff, I mean, I quite often harp on about Benjamin Britten because he is one of my favourite composers. But but those interludes, especially that Dawn one, the most famous one, the. That one. Because it has like because it's like played on flutes, so it has a very Spanish feel to it. That if you didn't know any better, you think, well, is he talking about Spain? But no, he's talking about he's talking about England, and yet it's sort of like somehow it conveys like England as well, There's another piece as well. It's like it's a film called The Battle of Britain, a very classic film. But there's this at the end. There's like the classic, like the dogfight between like the Spitfires and the German bombers and the Messerschmitts and whatnot. And there's this piece by William Walton, and it's sort of but it's again it's based on these sort of Spanish style patterns, No, it's a B flat. Yeah, really heavy actually as well, because like he's using the whole orchestra to convey this idea of this dogfight that's going on between like the Spitfires and the Germans, and the whole stake of the world is is resting on that battle. But it's bringing in these other influences, and yet again it reminds you very much of of England. But you actually listen to like some of the chord voicings in that as well, and they are very modern. They're the sort of things you should find in jazz. But for some reason, you can't call it jazz. So that's part of it. The other thing as well, I was talking about like bringing together like world cultures. I mean, I was in Birmingham a couple of weeks back, and there was I think it was actually the bank holiday weekend. I mean, we always get like the last Monday off in August. And there was so they had a stage set up. There was different acts on throughout the day, but one of them was this Bhangra group called Eternal Tal. I think I've seen them before, and they were just they had some dancers on the stage and some like some Indian musicians, mainly like a drummer who was doing like the Bhangra rhythms, but then getting people to come on stage and just do the proper Indian dancing, and there was a girl who was had the microphone and was obviously from Birmingham but Indian at the same time, so straddling those two cultures, and she was calling it fusion music because on the one hand Bhangra is like traditional Indian music, but also, you know, like having been born in Birmingham, there's all that Western influence there, and of course, like some of the dancers as well were you know, like, were English girls, and so you're also kind of reaching that point, you know, where it's not just like second and third generation now, but like fourth, fifth, sixth generation Indian, and it's sort of, so it's all part of like the English culture again, you know. So these ideas of, you know, these rhythms, you know, that they are I'm predominantly talking about England here, but they are predominantly ingrained in the English landscape again now, you know. And just going back into the talk about classical music. I mean, I think I need to rewatch it. There's this documentary about like the history of the guitar with Julian Breen called Guitara, and he's talking about Isaac Albéniz, and there's one whole episode devoted to him, and he's talking about how you know, he obviously being a really talented pianist, but he's spent the bulk of his career just writing these tone poems about these Spanish towns and villages, and what he would do would be he'd book a room somewhere in one of these towns, and then he'd you know, just spend a few days just absorbing the atmosphere of what was going on, and then he'd write something about it. He'd write some music about it, you know, rather than like write an essay, but he'd actually write some music about it and convey, you know, the sounds of what was going on. So you get this you get this sort of record, but within like a musical tone poem. But of course, you know, like at music college, you know, like Julian Breen was talking about how, you know, he was trained by Franz Liszt. So again, we've got like this mixture of so like the Spanish style with, you know, like the more sort of European romantic style, you know. And I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to jump in here and just go, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, and then we'll go, you know, we'll actually just say how it really is. But I just want to give you that gist of an idea, you know, because, well, why aren't we doing that, you know, as musicians? You know, why aren't we just going out, just transcribing what's going on around us, and you know, writing stuff which sort of reflects, you know, where we are, the landscape that we live in, you know. So then we start getting into, yeah, there's this whole thing like with the, you know, what's called jazz fusion, that it is getting a bit pompous and a bit up itself, because there's a lot of name dropping. Oh yeah, John McLaughlin, Miles Davis, yeah, and then like if you're going more modern, then you might say perhaps Chick Corea, Alan Holdsworth, who else? Larry Carlton, perhaps, you know, Lee Ritenour. But it doesn't have that sort of same sort of, you know, bringing ideas together and reflecting the culture that we live in. You know, will it be a record, you know, say looking back in 100 years' time, will it be a record of, you know, 2024, you know, as we are now, you know, as things are, or is it just kind of just playing like the same old standard licks and you know, just yeah. I mean, and you know, some of this also, you know, like when I was like doing a summer school down in London, you know, a few weeks back, you know, there's one of the tutors, I won't name him, but if he watches it, he'll recognise it because it's like one of the conversations we were having. That, all right. So one of the things he had everybody doing was play Happy Birthday, right? Well, it's you know, the melody of Happy Birthday. I'm gonna have to play again, aren't I? but playing it down, you know, like, I'm gonna wait for this to warm a bit. Yeah, that one. But then sort of like trying to put chords to it. So I was like, you know, because of the way I think now, I think more linearly, like this, rather than playing across boxes. To be honest, I hate playing across boxes because I've you know, if I can spread my fingers like this, then I'm going to think of the fretboard more like a piano, like, you know, like the piano keyboard. So that I always think that gives me a lot more freedom. So I was like trying to play it up here. So. And he was going, no, don't play it up there, because you got down here, you got more room. Well, have I got more room? I mean, I've got all the fretboard. So I was just trying to, you know, come up with ways of, you know, doing something different. And then, of course, you know, the whole thing about, all right, well, let's put some chords to that. And then it was all, you know, let's playing like a jazz version of it, as like an elementary introduction to to comping melodies, you know, with a view to eventually being somebody like Joe Pass, you know, because again, like, they seem to find this thing about, it's almost like an elitist thing about, you know, like putting Joe Pass on this high altar, where you're going, oh, we're not worthy, when of course Joe Pass would sort of like would think, really, you know, or you know, I mean, also find that, like, you know, like with Alan Holdsworth as well, you know, putting him on, you know, I'm a great player and very, you know, very influential and innovative, but again putting him on this high altar, where it's, you know, rather than sort of like being critical about it and thinking, well, could I do something else? Can I take this in a different direction and what have you? But anyway, so and then of course there was this other thing, you know, like with the style of teaching which I don't like, which is like the whole machine gun thing, where like, right, you do a variation on it, right, now you do it, no you do it, you know, and it's coming around to you and you've got to think of something. So one thing I thought of was doing like Van Halen taps, like that, but it's obviously it's not very clean, because I hadn't expected I'd be doing that. And then of course he was saying, oh well, if you want to do those taps, then you need to be like doing harp harmonics. So even though this tutor was, you know, is like very experienced, the idea of him, you know, like doing Van Halen sort of tap harmonics, I'm trying to say that, yeah, so it's trying to do sort of Van Halen tap harmonics, even though for rock players they are sort of an essential technique to have now. It just seemed alien, and the whole thing about, oh yeah, you know, when I was playing like the Happy Birthday up here, and he goes, oh, that's more of that's a metal thing, that's a heavy metal thing, as if somehow like jazz is superior, which is, well, that's just not true. Because like the whole thing about any musical form is this flow of ideas, you know, that like you know, like any sort of river or stream, you know, it flows and it carries things with it, you know, it brings all this sediment with it until it becomes this really powerful stream, and then you get these, you know, these really strong currents which bring everything together. So actually just then I actually started to think about this even more, about, you know, to put any sort of form of music on a pedestal and say, oh, that's like the highest that there is. That is also problematic, because it doesn't mean, you know, we can't just like look at this objectively and go, right, well, okay, I like that bit, but I don't quite get that bit. That could be altered. We could improve on that bit, you know. And that's the whole thing about, you know, that's the whole thing about music and like the creative arts as well, is that you know, all right, your first attempt, it may not be the best, but you can always go back and refine it, and then, and again, you go back and refine it, and go back and refine it. So like with each performance, in fact, each time we're actually playing the instrument, then we are sort of, you know, or should aim to be actively improving on what we've done before. You know, saying, oh, I've already done that, so I don't want to repeat myself. I want to go for something else. You know, I don't want to be boxed in. So so like I was saying, this whole thing about, you know, like why I called it the trouble with fusion, or with jazz fusion, is that it's become this sort of like this lofty thing, but which is actually a parody of itself, rather than a sort of a reflection of the world as it is at the moment. You know, yeah. So you know, like it's not reflecting stuff which is going on now. That it, you know, and it also seems to be this very insular thing too. You know, where, you know, like there's the different, you know, like the innovations. You know, and like I was saying, like with, you know, first of all, you know, the Van Halen tapping technique. You know, like with tap harmonic technique. All right, well the tapping technique. All right, something like Stanley Jordan, yeah, he uses that. But the idea of, because you know, even though like Van Halen, they're classed as like a rock or metal band, there's a lot of jazz ideas in their music, you know. So you'd almost need to study some form of jazz to fully understand what Van Halen are doing, you know. And then of course the sort of thing about, like, you know, when you form a group, you know, it helps if you all like that, the type of music that you wanted to play. But if everybody's coming from different backgrounds, then you also get that sort of overlay of everybody's different experiences and whatnot, you know. And I think I'm making this clear. So, you know, just and there's also, you know, I mean, I didn't bring my. I mean, I was thinking of bringing my 7-string down. You know, when they did that, just to see. Well, that would have been interesting, wouldn't it? You know, how that would have gone down, playing a 7-string or even 8-string down in a jazz workshop. But you know, I mean, I have seen, you know, like sometimes, you know, when I've been in like one of like the music shops, you know, I remember once there was this lad and he had a 7-string, and he was going through like a Friedman amp. He had this really nice sort of saturated overdrive tone, and even like in the lower register, he was playing these interesting chords. You know, it was coming more from jazz, but he was mixing that up with like sort of metal and stuff, and you know. But you know, that was just one of those rarities, you know, where you'd actually see somebody, you know, trying to get at something different, you know. And then of course, you know, like, where guitar manufacturers and amp manufacturers, that they are, you know, like they're pushing the bar all the time. So you know, so say when one of these guitar shops, you know, when they get like a Friedman amp in there and they got it set up, and you're getting this really rich sort of overdriven, you know, rock tone. Well, why would that seem out of place if you wanted to play in a fusion band? You know, why would it? You know, why would, say, somebody like Jake E. Lee be out of place? You know, playing in Miles Davis's band. I mean, I'm sure he could do it, but it might just seem a bit sort of strange, you know. But why make this sort of artifice about, you know, this sort of fusion music from like the 60s and the 70s as being this sort of this lofty thing which you have to bow down and worship? That's, you know, because that's not a true reflection of where we're at, is it? You know. So I'd appreciate your thoughts on this, because obviously, you know, I could write a whole thesis on or whatever on this. I could, you know, but I don't want to go on too long. So, but yeah, so I would appreciate your thoughts on this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.